Alright, y'all. So Matt McKinley, Quantum of Conscience. Go check out his channel if you haven't. If you hadn't come from his channel, go check him out. I'll put a link in the description. But recently he talked about comics and kind of the destruction of, he didn't word it this way, but I'm going to word it this way, kind of destruction of old media. And what I'm about to show on my screen now is something I came across that is sold at where I work currently. And I noticed the name Poopy, okay? Or I thought maybe it's pronounced Poppy at first. I'm gonna show a picture on the screen. Until I saw, and I went to, and I got all the cases I found to go put them on the floor on an end stand that I can make room on. And I started reading the can. I was like, prebiotic, meaning it's supposed to help you poop, right? So that's where the name comes from. It's called Poopy. And apparently it's like a trend right now. I don't know from where, but I was told by another coworker, shout out to her, that it's like a trend right now. And I immediately thought of Matt McKinley's presentation where he was talking about the fart fetish thing from the Harley Quinn comic. And I brought it up with my coworker too, and she's like, "Oh my God, I heard that. My boyfriend was telling me about it." And that's and before I brought that up, I said, there's a weird wave of like shit culture in the media right now, and it's, to be honest, it's always been there. Shows like South Park, you know, what's the name, Mr. Hanky and shit like that, and it's always been there, but it seems to be a weird resurgence of like shit obsession. And I was watching a dog culture critic podcast one day, and they were talking about that as well, where there's this weird obsession with shit, with poop, and you can see it in the toys. Like they were showing like Barbie toys, where the Barbie toy would come with a little dog, and it would come with a little piece of plastic poop as a joke, right? I'll show a screenshot of that here. Is that poop? That is poop. What? So it's called, I found something very interesting already. It's called the Barbie puppy poop. What is it called? Hold on. I gotta look this up. Holy shit, dude. Okay, so it's called the Potty Pup set. Oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. So yeah, it's a dog where you press its tail down and poop comes out. And they had brought this up. This was a few months ago in their podcast. They brought this up. And I thought it was interesting. I was like, you know, that's really strange, you know? So we have this weird fractal where it's like shit is being promoted. And it's like a degeneration, right? And the degeneration's always been there, right? Since and it's really funny because the girl I was talking to with my coworker, I've never talked about metaphysics at all with her. She brought it up. She said, and I didn't know she was, I don't know if she's a religious type, but she immediately said, when I said something along the lines of, it's like a cultural degeneracy when we're talking about the obsession with poop, because I brought that up. I was like, there's this weird thing going on where there's like an obsession with poop, with shit. And then she said, yeah, it's like a cultural decay, Sodom and Gomorrah, and I was like, taken aback a little bit because I'm not used to people other than myself making those kind of connections, and a lot of Christians do that, but and I don't know if she's a Christian. I really don't. She's never come off as a Christian. She really comes off as maybe one of these, maybe not a atheist, like a real atheist, but like a kind of on the fence. She's not sure what to think kind of situation. I don't know for sure. I never had those kind of conversations with her. Well, for one thing, she's a woman, so it's like I'm not gonna have those kind of conversations, especially with a female that I don't necessarily trust. And she seems kind of cool, but you just never know, right? So I put a little gap between me and her, but so far she seems cool. She loves cats. I've brought up weird things before with her, and she seems to understand or seems to catch what I'm saying. But she brought up Sodom and Gomorrah, and I'm not going to get into that, but like my point is the degeneracy has always been there, right? And we got into not a discussion, but kind of went back and forth a little bit. I brought up the Zoomer generation, and I said something along the lines of, poor Zoomers, like the poor Alpha Gen. They got a lot on their plate, man, when it comes to sorting through the madness that the Boomer Gen and the Silent Gen left their children behind, like the post-World War I and II culture, right? Because that's what we're living in. We're living in a culture. We're living in a post-World War II culture. This is what we're going through right now. And I know there's astrological signs and all that you can point it back to, and I don't know anything about that, okay? But I know it's there. I know that these generations have a lot to do with astrology, but I'm not familiar with it. Like the Pluto generations, I believe are called the Pluto generations, or something along those lines, okay? I'm not well versed in it, but it's just really funny that, to get back into it, I don't know if this is synchronicity, guys, because Matt McKinley talked about the fart fetish thing. I just got through listening to that this morning. Then I ran across this can that said poopy on it. I didn't think much of it until I read prebiotic. I was like, oh my god, prebiotic is supposed to help you use the bathroom. And I was like, this is literally a shit soda. And I don't think people realize, like how do I put it? Like the symbols, or the I talk about this all the time, like the metaphors that life gives you. Like, this is what's on the outside is what's on the inside, right? So people are buying the poop soda as like a meme, as like a joke maybe, or as a cultural thing, as a trend, right? They buy the poop soda and they drink it going, haha, I drank the poop soda, or whatever the fuck they say. And they don't realize the spiritual nature of it, the metaphysical nature of it. Y'all might be thinking I'm fucking nuts, okay? But these are signs, man, like, and I don't know exactly what it means, but I'm just telling you, when shit like this, literal shit, when stuff like this gets thrown out into the culture and gets thrown out for us to consume, there's metaphysical signs associated with it. And I had brought up we brought up South Park when when that little chat we were having, me and that lady. She's a little younger than me. She's a millennial, but I think she's maybe like probably like 7 or 8 years younger than me. So the things that she grew up with, I was an adult already. So she grew up with a show called I think it's called Happy Tree Friends. I may be wrong. It's whatever that show was with the forest animals that they would get tortured and stuff. I've never seen a single episode. I don't care to. But that's what sprung to mind when we were talking about cultural degeneracy. And she was like, oh my god, I can't believe you mentioned that show, because I thought it was some weird memory, and like or something like that. She said that those were the shows that traumatized her as a kid, that introduced her to, like, this kind of wicked nature. And oh my god, this is something that just popped into my head. What I honestly think, oh yeah, I drove by a trailer just now. It said super ego. I ought to stop and take a picture. I'm gonna do that, actually. I'm gonna stop and take a picture of this trailer. Hold on, I'll put it up on the screen when I'm done. So to get back into it, people, they've been exposed to degeneracy by reading stories in the Bible. Sodom and Gomorrah, they're kind of shown the two sides of the coin. Oh, this is a perfect spot right here, actually. I'll do it from here. I don't have to turn around. So there's, let me pause this. So children, the generations, right? As youngsters, the generation of youngsters are introduced through the culture, whether it be the religious culture or otherwise. They're shown degeneracy, right? Whether it be sex or violence or whatever. So we're told about these stories in the Bible that involves ultraviolence and promiscuity and torture and all of that. So they got those spirits inside the youngsters. But now we have television, right? So we have television, we have books, movies, etc. So we have a new medium, we have a new means of showing degeneracy. And to this girl, my coworker that I'm talking about, her exposure to degeneracy was shows like South Park and Happy Tree Friends, or whatever it's called. I'm probably getting the name wrong. I don't really care. Y'all probably know what I'm talking about anyway. But so instead of the Bible, right, the kids that aren't exposed to religion, that aren't exposed to the Bible, they're exposed in these other ways, through the media. And to be honest, if I'm gonna tell y'all something, like, to get back into how I grew up, where my father died when I was 5. I saw death. I experienced death at a very early age, and I think that was like almost like a protection in a way, where it's like I saw the worst of the worst in that moment. And you can make an argument it could be worse, and you're right, it could be worse. But to me, like, this is actually really interesting to me, and I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. To me, witnessing my father die was on purpose, in order to show me the death, and to show me that death isn't something to be feared in a way. It may even be something to be celebrated in hindsight, because now I spoke about this too, where I actually have a great air of gratitude for my father dying the way he did. Because if he hadn't, I probably wouldn't be in the situation I'm in now, where I have a wife and a daughter and all that. So he died with a purpose, for a purpose. But I had a very it's not funny, but I had a weird incident with our cashier, who, and her and I joke around. She's a young girl. She's 19, so she's a Zoomer. So she's really cool though. She's got her eyes open. You know, she sees through the madness, but she's still got that inner anger within her, where she has this separation from her father. And she called me up there because I had to avoid a transaction. And I go, dang it, why are you always messing up? Like, playing around with her, right? She knew I was playing around with her. I said, you're always messing up about something, kind of just messing around. And she said, I don't know, Rudy, I guess because I didn't have a dad. she just fucking threw that out of nowhere. And I started laughing. I was like, why would you say, what the hell? That's dark. Like, all of a sudden. And I said, don't worry, I said her name. I'm not gonna say her name, but I said, don't worry, I didn't have a dad either. And we checked out a couple of customers together, and I kind of got into it. I was like, I watched my father die in front of me and all that. Kind of telling her that, so casually, right? I say shit like that so casually, and she's like, Rudy, that's really dark. Like, did you go to therapy for that? I was like, no, I didn't need therapy, and all that. And I couldn't really get into it because it was so busy. It's Christmas Day, a bunch of fucking dickheads are out. But it's so funny because I was like, it got me thinking in that moment. Even while I'm up there just checking people out, I started thinking, like, I was exposed to death at a very early age, and I didn't need therapy. And I told her I had a lifetime to think about it up until now. And I couldn't get into how I forgave him, and I realized that he died with a purpose, and that I was my father in a way. Like, I was just him, and I understood him because I understood the crazy lady. I understood the dynamic between him and the crazy lady he hooked up with, which would be my mother. And that's when I had empathy for him, and that's when I realized who he was. I know everything about him in that moment. And I know everything about him. I know everything about myself. And that's when I became whole again. That's how I got reconnected to God. And that's why I don't need therapy. So, to get back into it, it's like I got exposed to death. I got exposed to that at a very early age. And I realized that death wasn't something to be feared, but something to be celebrated. And I tell my daughter, it's like, look, it's okay to be sad when I pass away, but I want you to remember that death is something to be celebrated. And I tell her, you don't know what this means right now, but, and I give her context. I tell her about these things, how I feel about my father. And it's like, you're not going to understand at this very moment, but the moment I die, and you've had some time to think about it, to dwell on it, you might understand. And it's a maybe, a might understand, because she's still got her mother's spirit. She doesn't have my spirit fully the way she should. The same way her mother doesn't have her father's spirit the way she should, God's spirit. At best, she had her grandpa show her the right way, but there's still a disconnection. That's where that severance from her own father came from, was being raised by her grandfather the way a father should have, the way her father should have, my wife's father. So that's where that separation comes from. And I've talked about these things with my wife, and she understands on the surface. She understands the words that I'm saying, but she don't really understand the words that I'm saying. She don't understand the metaphysics, the deeper spiritual metaphysical meanings behind the shit I say. Anyway, guys, I think that's it. fucking 15-minute ramble like I always do. Y'all take it easy. Merry Christmas.